All right, we're good.
Hey, I'll start then, I guess. What stood out to you guys this week? I'll just start there.
I guess I can go. um, so this is actually what I've been writing my paper on for the semester, is about like religious freedom. It's super interesting to me. I remember a few years ago when the church came out with all these videos and the Religious Freedom website, and but it kind of piqued my interest, and so it's been good to learn a little bit more about it. And I especially appreciate that we can learn about the law side of it in the particular instances, like in the Truth Over Rule book, where it talks about how the law played a role in what the justifications, I guess, for like, I guess you could say, like, stifling religious liberty is. So I really like the line where they said that freedom of religion is not freedom from religion. And I think that's such an important distinction, because a lot of people think that, religious freedom means, oh, well, you can't, impose your beliefs on me, or you can't be religious. But that's not how it is. It's the ability to not only believe what you want, but also be able to act on those freedoms. And I think that's such an important distinction, especially when you're advocating for religious freedom, because that is something that others use to justify restricting religious freedom. I also really liked the last video that we watched with the professor from Harvard, I believe it was. He did such a great job at explaining religious liberty, and I loved the story that he used. That he said, I had friends here in China, and just the way that the friend explained the importance of religious liberty, because for me, obviously, it's important to be able to practice my religion as I want, but it was interesting to see his viewpoint on how that affects society as a whole. That if we do not have people who act on some sort of moral standard, then society begins to fall apart. And it made me think back to I can't even remember who it was. It might have been Thomas Jefferson said it, but he's known for saying that our government was created to moral people, and so if we don't have a moral people, then our whole governmental system doesn't work, and it's void, I guess you could say. So I thought that was super interesting. And just again, going back to the whole Truth and Overruled book, it makes me really frustrated to hear about all the different things. I just felt so sad. I know I was reading your guys' discussion board post yesterday, and Rachel was like, I'm just so sad that this happened. And me too. I was like, look at this cute grandma. She's just trying to be good. And, but it's so amazing the amount of resiliency that she has shown, and just her conviction. And again, I just think it's so important that we really understand and take time to read the laws. As I've, learned about religious freedom, different other laws, and the opposition with it, I've seen that there is, I guess you could say, a common interpretation of the law, how people, we quote the law. But really, when you go in further to look at it, there's so much more to it, and we need to understand how it was intended to be interpreted, not just our modern interpretation of it. And when we do that, we really do have the law on our side. So I think it's important to understand those principles.
Oh yeah, I agree. I think this whole week has been super, I say this every week, I feel like, just super eye-opening, where I'm like, over and over, my jaws dropped. And I think you brought up that little grandma, who is getting sued. And I thought that was so interesting to watch from start to finish, and how this was with a man who was her friend, who had been her friend for years. And I think, and maybe this sounds crazy, but I think for me, before I read through all this, I would have said, if you own a cake shop, just bake the cake. why wouldn't you just bake the cake? Like, why just, of all the things to get high centered on, why this? And for the first time after reading this chapter, maybe I'm not making any sense, I understood that this isn't about not serving gays and lesbians or about not doing business with them. It is simply isolated to marriage and how people feel about the sanctity of marriage and why they won't do these particular things. And so as I watched this and realized this woman isn't against gays in any way. She really considers this man a friend. She's against she is for her personal belief of marriage between a man and a woman. And I really finally saw why this is so important, that this violates how she feels religiously. Not that she refuses to serve. I even thought it was really interesting how she said, I'll make a birthday cake. I'll do all these other things. I can't do this. And it finally kind of clicked in my head why this is so important, because it's a religious liberty being suppressed, really. Does that make any sense?
Okay, this week, I don't know if you read my post. I know Shalay did. Really got me going. So I always forget that there's a second page that we're supposed to read, but I'm going to talk about the first one. So the first thing with the student at FAU, that was so startling. I was like, why would a teacher, in the first place, why would a teacher do that? Like, that's horrible. And I just can't even imagine, like, being in that situation. And, I mean, obviously, we're not going to be in that situation here at BYU, Idaho, but, like, that's awful. And I'm so glad that he had that courage to stand up to that professor and be like, no, I'm not doing it. That's not good, kind of thing. So, and my husband was actually sitting right next to me as I was watching the video, and he was like, that's awful. He's like, why would they do that? And I think it's even crazier that the college, like, went against him and was like, and it talked about how ironic it was, how I think, hold on, let me see if I can find it. It was ironic, where is it? Oh, that the institution seemed to apply a double standard in this case, and it stated publicly that a university environment should foster dialogue and debate, yet rebuked and retaliated against the student who had the courage to attempt such dialogue with the professor. And I was like thinking, that's what college is about. You go to learn about different things, and yeah, you learn about it, but you still have your thing and you educate other people, and that really made me mad. But the thing that really made me mad was the cake. Like, I don't know. It's just, I see in restaurants all the time, and it's like it has a sign that's like, we have the right to refuse service to anyone. And I was like, if they can have those signs up, why can't this person have that sign up? Like, it's so dumb to me. Like, if they can refuse service to someone that they don't want to, why don't this lady have that same right? And I was just also super proud of her for standing up, and I know that it was kind of hard for her. She said in the video it was hard for her to come to the conclusion not to bake the cake because it was her friend, and he'd been giving her service for like 9 years or something like that. And so I just think another thought that came across my mind was when someone like that, who has been giving her service for so long and they're friends, I think that's kind of immature that he went and sued her. I think it's like, okay, it's a flower, like, they're flowers. Like, you can go to hundreds of other flower shops. It's no big deal. And I just think with other cases where people sue over cakes and stuff like that, it's just so dumb. Like, why would you waste your time and energy to do that? You can make your own cake. I mean, you probably don't want to for a wedding, but, like, there are hundreds of other people who would do it for you. And you're just wasting time and money and energy suing these people who have different views than you. And I think that's super immature. Like, I don't know. I kind of wrote about it on my post. That's like me going to the tutoring center and a boy being like, I'm not going to tutor you because you're a girl. And then I'm not going to go waste my time, like, trying to get him fired and everything. You know, it's stupid, but I'm just going to be like, hey, I'll just go find another tutor. And just, like, leave it at that. So I think there's a level of immaturity here as well. So lots of thoughts for this week. So there's some of them.
I think one of my thoughts about the flower issue, I don't think, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think he was the one that actually went after her. I think it was one of those third-party things where somebody found out about it, and then we're all up in arms and stuff because gays don't have any rights, and so the gentleman that is actually the gay gentleman didn't actually go after her. It was a third party that said, well, she can't do that to you because you're gay. And so we're going to make this big old stink about it.
Allison, I think you're right. I think that originally was true, but then it was brought up that he then did sue her. Like after like the ACLU sued her, then he did too. But not.
I think, like, because I think you might be right, both of you. But she got kind of like double sued because I think the ACLU sued her company.
Yeah, and
then the friend sued her personally. So like she's not in danger of only losing her business, but like everything. Because I've been
so dumb.
I know. I've been following this case like outside for my internship stuff too, and yeah. So I think both of you are right, which I didn't catch on that. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Is this case recent? This flower case? Is her? Can you hear me?
Sorry, can you say it again?
Yeah, is her case, this flower case, is it recent? Or when did it happen? Does anyone know?
I think it was like 2008 or 2010.
Something like that, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it's been ongoing.
Man, these people are so dumb. They're so immature. Move on with your life. Don't make someone else miserable because I don't know.
It was 2013.
Oh, wow.
In the book.
I'm off by about 5 years.
That's okay.
Either way, it's recent. Because her name was Baronelle Stutzman, right? Yeah, 2013. Crazy.
I think it's so dumb. It's so dumb. Again, just move on with your life. There's thousands of other flower people you can go to. It's not a big deal. But then again, I haven't had my rights violated like that, so I don't know.
I think, Rachel, you bring up a really good point that if there was nowhere else to get flowers, if we didn't live in a free market society, that would be one thing where it's like you can't just target a whole group of people and nobody will do their flowers, nobody will do their cake. But it is a free market. There are other avenues, and I think your point of if they say no, you can even say that is so ridiculous, but you know what? I'm not giving you business. I mean, she realizes she runs the risk of losing his business entirely, but she shouldn't run the risk of losing everything she owns because she wants to protect how she feels religiously. And he can go next door and take his business with him, and that's the risk she runs. But now these people are risking losing everything they own. That just seems it seems so illogical.
Yeah, I wonder what it would be like if it was SWIT. I don't know how this my brain is. I had it and then I lost it. If like, never mind, I lost it.
There was an instance I read about, Rachel, because I think, are you saying like if it switched, like if a gay person refused rights to someone on a religious basis?
Sure. I don't know.
I don't know. Because I read I can't remember where it was exactly, but a few weeks ago, there were some people who were Christians. They were handing out pamphlets, not in the store. They'd been handing out pamphlets outside on the street, just, religious pamphlets. And they walked into a coffee shop to get some coffee on a break. And the gentleman who owned it was gay. And he threw them out because they had been proselyting their Christian beliefs, not even in his store, just on the street. And he said, I don't serve Christian people, and just said some very vile things to them. So it is possible that it's flipped. And yeah, ACLU wasn't happy about it.
I just don't understand, like, it goes back to this thing where it makes me so frustrated, like how the LGBT community wants respect. Like, they're like, you need to respect our rights, you need to make us equal, blah, blah, blah. But when we tried to be like, okay, like, I respect your views, but this is what I believe. And they're like, nope, I can't do it. And it's like, it needs to be a two-way street. They demand respect, but then they won't give it back. So it's just like, it's kind of like that in my head a little bit. And it's just really frustrating.
I think because I agree with you, Rachel, and I've been thinking a lot about that, how, if someone demands respect, we should be able to ask respect of them as well. And I think that's why it's so important that we do bring up these issues. I can't remember if it was Allison or Alicia on your discussion board, but you're talking about the importance of doing something. Was that you, Allison? Okay. Anyways, and that really impacted me though. I was reading that yesterday and I was like, that's so true. Because if nobody speaks up, even if we don't, like in this case, these people that we're looking at who, are being persecuted because they chose to live their religion, if they had just gone with it, we wouldn't have known there was an issue. We wouldn't have, been able to see. And so it's so important that we at least say something, even if it feels like we lose. That's a lesson. I feel like a life lesson. Heavenly Father's been trying to teach me these last couple of weeks. Like, even if it seems like we fail at something, it's actually not a failure because you at least did something. And I think, you look at these cases like with Barronelle, or like Jack Phillips is going to the Supreme Court at the beginning of next month. They're getting so much publicity, and they have to recognize that it's a huge issue. And so even just saying something to get people's attention and just to let people know that it's happening is so important, I feel like, because if not, then it's just swept under the rug and nobody knows what's happening.
Yeah, that's true. And this is the first time of me hearing of Barronelle's case, and obviously I'm out of the loop, but it just made me so happy how she had all this support behind her, how she kept getting all this mail, and then this church, I don't remember who it was, sent her a Bible, and all these people wrote in it. And so I just think, like, yeah, it does suck. And like you said, we do need to get it out there, and we need to talk about it and everything. But we also, this is something that I have a hard time remembering, is that there are people out there who support the same things we do. So it was really refreshing, nice to see that these people were like, we support you, like, it'll be okay, and like stuff like that. So I really liked that aspect, and I'm really glad that she showed that as well in her video. I just want to meet this lady. I'll go give her a hug. Just,
I had a couple of I have in my book, I outlined or underlined a couple of different things that go like right along with what we're talking about. Ryan Anderson says that if a citizen concludes that he cannot in good conscience participate in same-sex ceremony, the government should not force him to choose between his religious beliefs and his livelihood. And what Alicia was just saying is that we have a competitive market. We should be able to choose without being called names or being sued for our lives. Would we? And I don't. Did you guys watch the very last? There was an interview, and there were 4 men, and it was just like it was Ryan Anderson, and then there was a gentleman, a big-necked gentleman. He looked really like he was a football player. I don't know who he was, but he looked like he played football yesterday. I mean, big, and it was like nobody was getting anywhere. Nobody was listening to either. It was just like I'm not going to agree with you, and you're not going to agree with me, and we're just going to yell at each other for 5 minutes or whatever, however. And I was like, okay, that's really hard to listen to. But I think that's kind of, I feel that that's the way, unless you're given like these quiet moments, these like, okay, you speak for 5 minutes, and then you speak for 5 minutes, and nobody is allowed to talk in between. Nobody is going to listen. You can't have a conversation when you're yelling over each other like that. It was just really hard for me to listen to. And there was like no compromise. Like, I'm not even going to listen to what you say, because what you say is not what I'm hearing. They're going to hear what they want to hear, and it's almost like there's no rationalizing. It's like they get it in their head that it's like, we're against everything you believe in, and we don't like you at all, and that's really not the case. And I hate that I have to say they and we. I don't know how to fix that, because I don't feel like it's me against them. I just feel like sometimes I feel like I'm attacked, and our first reaction is to attack back. The other thing that I loved was, where is it? So this actually was a part in the book where he was kind of quoting President Obama, and he said that supporters of marriage as a union of a man and a woman are not coming at it from a mean-spirited perspective. They're coming at it because they care about families. And I'm like, yes, right? That's exactly right. And that was President Obama speaking. And I mean, I know he's kind of, gotten on the anti. I don't think he's an anti-family bandwagon, but it's really hard to have the perspective and the belief that this is really what's the best for families, without making it seem like we don't love everyone. I don't know. It's been a challenging week. Really challenging week for me too. It's hard, and I've even at times, I'm totally honest. I'm just like, wouldn't it just be easier just to bake the cake? I mean, I understand the reason behind it, and I understand that we have to fight for our liberties and stuff, but I mean, this is just totally being honest. Part of me is just like, let's just bake the cakes and give them flowers so that they'll just be quiet and be nice, and maybe they'll go away. And that's part of me just being frustrated, I think, because I don't know how to deal with confrontation very well. And I understand the importance of standing up for what's right, but part of me is just like, oh, fight. It's like, I just don't like arguing and fighting. And here's some cake. If that'll make you happy, here, have some cake. I don't know. It's been hard. It's been a hard week for me. So, sorry.
Something that you said, Allison, really, when you were talking about how they won't listen to what they're just hearing what they want to hear. It made me think of people with that in the church. They're like, Mormons hate gays and lesbians. They hate them. Like, they won't even, they don't accept them, blah, blah, blah. No, we don't hate them. We hate the action. We don't hate you as a person. And they won't take the time to listen to that. And they won't hear and understand that. So what you said just made me think of that. Like, we don't hate gays and lesbians. We just don't like their action and stuff like that. So I think that's also really frustrating. It's like, because as a church, we've been attacked for that. And it's like, no, stop it. You don't understand. If you just take 10 minutes to listen, it would be resolved. So that's what I thought of as you said that.
So, is it okay if I share a quick experience that I had last night that actually was really I feel like it's good news. Like, I feel like it's gave me some hope. I went to an open house last night in Tacoma for a marriage and family therapy program at a university called Pacific Lutheran University. And I walked in and I could see I was a fish out of water. I mean, there were gay couples there. There were lots of color hair, lots of tattoos. You could feel the LGBTQ vibe, just that I was a fish out of water. And for about the first half of it, I just thought, because this is a program I've really considered applying for and starting next September. And they made it very clear, even though it's called Pacific Lutheran University, it is not a private university, and it is not looked at through the lens of any religion at all. And I just sat there thinking, like, I wanted to bolt. And about halfway through, something in my mind changed, and I sat there and I started looking at each of these people in the room, and there were probably 25 people in the room, and there were a panel up front, and the director, who I thought seemed like a Mormon guy, totally. And then like maybe 20 prospective students. And about halfway through, I thought, and it just came into my mind, these are my children. Like, it was like the Spirit. Look at these people. They're my children. I love them. And I started looking at them differently. And then I asked a few questions, and something in my heart kind of changed. And I just felt differently. I suddenly felt love for all these people. And then at the end, a lady with purple hair and tattoos down her arms came over and wanted to talk to me, because one of the questions I asked is this really feasible? I have 5 kids, and I don't want to become a marriage and family therapist in order to lose my own family in the process. Like, how is this really going to work logistically with a family? Like, what is the actual time expected? And she came up to me and she's like, I have 2 kids and I am worried about the same thing. We ended up talking. And then not the director, but the lady who directed the whole conversation came for some reason. And most of the people had filed out, and she pulled a chair right up to mine. And she said, she was looking at me intently, and she said, do you have any questions for me? And my heart started just pounding. And I said, I do. And I didn't plan to say any of this, but it's like it tumbled out of my mouth. And I just said, I need to ask a really, really personal question. And she said, okay. And she was looking at me, when someone is like focused. And I said, I'm a Mormon, and I feel like a fish out of water here. I didn't plan to say any of this. And she said, I guessed that. And she said, and just so you know, the director is a Mormon. And I said, oh, really? And she said, I know we've talked a lot about being heavy-handed with LGBTQ here, but she said, but I need you to understand that when we talk about diversity, we want this room, because they'll only pick 20 people to go through this 2-year program. And she said, we want the 20 people to be as diverse as possible. And she said, and that includes conservative views, that includes people with strong religious backgrounds. And she wasn't a member. And I said to her, I need to know that if I'm going to invest this kind of money, and I couldn't believe I couldn't believe this came out of my mouth. If I'm going to invest this kind of money, I need to know that this is a safe place for me, and that my religious beliefs will not be attacked. And I was like, what are you saying, Alicia? Shut up. And she said, they will not be attacked. You will be safe here. We value religious belief, and we understand where you're coming from. And all we want to do for all of our students here is widen the lens so that they learn from you and you learn from them. And we're not asking you to change. We're not asking you to be different. And we value who you are and your background. And I was stunned. I mean, it was like the Spirit was there. And it just felt like such a blessing that I was able to see that there's some good things happening too. Because that room at first did not feel like I could have ever had that conversation. And then at the end, she said, please, please apply. We need your perspective. And I just thought it was so cool that it's not all bad. You know what I mean? I didn't mean to go on and on, but it was such an amazing experience.
That sounds like
Like,
such a different
so
experience than
cool.
FAU that we read about, and I love that. That there are colleges out there that are still like, sorry, Shalay, I didn't mean to cut you off. I have a lot to say today. I'm so sorry. But I think that's just really cool that there are colleges out there that are not like, because BYU schools, CES schools, like you kind of get that from them because we're, but like, that's really cool that school's like, we value your perspective. We're not going to try and change you. We're not trying to, like, we respect your beliefs. We respect everything. Like, we're not, like, we want you to learn from them and them to learn from you. Like, we value what you have to say. And I just think that's super refreshing after reading that FAU story of that stupid professor. But that was really cool that you shared that, and that we can still see that there are still people in colleges out there that respect what we believe, what people believe in, and aren't trying to change you or change your mind and stuff like that. So, sorry, Shalay.
You're totally good, Rachel. No worries. I was going to say, first of all, Alicia, thank you for sharing that. Like, that is so neat. And I agree with Rachel. It's refreshing to hear things like that. Because I have a friend here at the University of Minnesota, and she's doing a PhD program in marriage and family studies. And she has very interesting stories because she's pretty much the only conservative student in her whole cohort. And it can be a hostile environment at times. But I love that you talked about how you made that connection with that one woman, that she was worried about her family too. And I think, going back to what Allison was saying, it's hard and we don't want to get in these conflicts, but I was thinking back to the beginning of this semester, that I can't remember exactly the quote, but it was something like a maybe could be a future yes, or something like that. Do you guys remember reading that? And I think that's so true. And I think, sometimes we feel like we're failures if we don't change people's minds. And I fall into that too. Like I want to change people's minds, be like, no, this is the right way. But I think an important first step is just to get information across, and, to have that respect, say, okay, I'm not trying to change your mind. I just want to have understanding, and, ask that they share their beliefs too. That's something that I've, try to do with my friends of different religions, or when we have different viewpoints, just say, okay, well, I don't understand where you're coming from. Can you explain why this is important to you? And have them explain it, because then they know that you're not trying to attack them. You just want to come to an understanding. And then I feel like there's always something that you can agree on. Like in Alicia's case, both you and that other woman last night were worried about your families. And then, we can say, okay, this is why I believe this way, because I agree with you on this point. And so I think that it's important to focus on that success isn't always necessarily changing people's minds. I feel like advocacy is so much just about getting information out to people and defending our beliefs, because we will have to defend them, but just to, I guess, come to understanding in hopes that one day people will be able to see, oh, well, I remember, so-and-so said this, and this is the viewpoint, and so maybe I was wrong about this. But I think a good first point is to focus on just understanding each other and understanding both sides, not just saying, okay, well, I'm pushing my beliefs on you, but asking other people, why is this important to you? What are your fundamental beliefs about it? Because as I was thinking about these different cases, this semester's taught me to try to look at the other point of view that's different than mine. And so in my mind, I'm saying, oh my goodness, these people's religious rights are being violated, and it's true. But at the same time, if I were in the position of the people who were prosecuting these people, and I felt that my rights had been violated and that I had been discriminated against, I would feel upset too. They just want to not be discriminated against, like both sides. And so I feel like it's important to find that common ground, and to come together just to an understanding. And I feel like that will help foster mutual respect between people, so that maybe it doesn't get so contentious, and that there is an open place where we can have open discussion about things in a more peaceful way.
I feel like that's the problem with people. They don't try and listen to the other side. They just want to believe what they believe and they don't want to hear anything else. And I think if everyone just took the time to sit down and listen to what other people have to say, like, we wouldn't have these problems. Like, we're not trying to change your mind. Just sit down and listen, just for a second. And I think people don't take the time to do that, and that's what is causing a lot of these problems.
I think that I agree with you, Rachel, because it's, oh, sorry, Alicia. I was going to say, I agree with you because it does seem that people don't want to listen. And I think that's why it's important, at least this is a personal goal that I have, is to go with the intent, you know, because we know that everyone wants to share their opinion, you know, and so I think it's important to go in the intent with, okay, can you explain to me why this is important to you? And I think that softens hearts because it shows that you care about them as a person. You know, you care about the relationship that you have, and it shows that you're not trying to attack or push your beliefs on them. So I think if you go in there with the idea of, okay, well, I want to hear your side first, I think that softens people's hearts and kind of brings down their defenses, and they're willing to share. And then you can say, oh, that's, you know, you could say, oh, that's great. I believe this, you know, this one thing you said too. And then they'll be like, really? Like, I was thinking about, I had an experience on my mission, like right before I went home, we were contacting, and there was a Muslim woman that we felt like we should talk to. And so, you know, she was on the street and we were just talking to her, and, you know, we asked her, okay, like, you know, what religion do you belong to? Like, you know, what are your beliefs? And, you know, she said some stuff, and we're like, oh yeah, you know, we're Christians. And she's like, oh, well, you know, I don't believe that the Bible has all the truth. And we're like, hey, we believe that too. And she was like, what, are you serious? And we're like, yeah. And we were able to talk to her about dispensations and the restoration of the gospel. And we were able to talk to her about the Book of Mormon and give her a Book of Mormon, and how I believe that the Bible wasn't translated correctly. And so we had this additional book, and there was another prophet. And it was so cool because we first started off, you know, by asking her what she believed in. We were able to find that common ground. And so I feel like when we go to people and ask them their opinion, they're less on the defense and more like, oh my goodness, this person cares about me as a person. They don't care about me just as a stat or as someone to push their opinion onto.
Where did you serve, Shalay? I've been meaning to ask you that.
I served in Lima, Peru.
Oh, how great.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Oh. Well, and I was just going to say too, I totally agree. I think, and I actually drove home last night feeling like, Heavenly Father, I have looked at this so often from the wrong perspective. I recognized what I had in common with these people. I mean, one of the things that purple-haired lady and I talked about, I said to her, you know, one of the worries I have is I've been a stay-at-home mom for 20 years now. I don't have any job experience to put on a resume to put to grad school. And she reached out and grabbed my hand and she said, don't ever say you have no experience. You have the best experience in the whole world. Children are the most important thing. And of all the people in the room, she would have been the last person I would have guessed who would have said this. And at the end, she just threw her arms around me and she said, I hope we're together next year. And we're so different. I can tell we're so different. But we both love our families. And I love what you were just, you know, what everyone has just said. We are more alike than we are different. And of course, we might have some fundamental different beliefs, but we can find common ground. We can find it with anybody. And it comes through love. You know, it never comes through you're wrong. It always comes through let's find what we can agree on and what we both feel passionately about. And it was just a neat experience.
Sorry, I'm going to come in again. No, but I was thinking about what you said, Alicia. Like, we are similar in more ways than we are different. And I was thinking back to and Preach My Gospel, and like the first part of it, it talks about how, you know, each of us is a child of God and how each of us just loves our families and wants our families to be happy. And you think about it, we obviously love our families. Like, we're very passionate about families and defending them and protecting them, every single one of us. Like, I know it because of the comments everyone has made. I mean, you guys are wonderful people, and I can tell that you guys just want so hard to do what's right. Like, you want it, and it's great. And I, thinking about it, I guess I can see how other people, even though they define family in fundamentally different ways, that's what they want too. Like, people who are for same-sex marriage, they just want their family. And while their idea of family may be different, that's what they want. Or, people who are LGBT, they want their kids to be protected from discrimination and from bullying. And so they may not, go about it in the most kind or respectful way. But I feel like that's something that everyone can agree on, because I don't think people do things like this just to be hateful and mean, but they do it because they feel that they and their family members are people of importance as well. And so they're just trying to defend them as they are. And so that's something that we can always, I think, agree on with people, is that, we all care about families, even though we care about them in different ways and different types of families. That's something that all ties us together as well.
Okay. I don't know what time we're supposed to go to, but any other thoughts? That just led a great discussion, that one question. So if anyone has any other questions they would like to ask, or any other thoughts, spit them out. Delay.
I had one question. So, and Allison, I think you're going to be able to answer this because you mentioned it. So I noticed that one of the questions talked about third-party lawsuits. Is that, like, can you clarify this for me? Because I think, I have an idea. Is it when there are two people who are, like, at odds with each other, and then they bring in, like, someone like ACLU or whatever to come defend them? Is that what third-party lawsuit is?
I think a third-party lawsuit is it's not the two people that are suing each other. It's a situation where somebody finds out about a situation, like those who are fighting for whatever, but it could be the ACLU, it could be anything. They will come in and say, this person and this person was discriminated against, and so we're going to sue you for this person. They'll bring that person in as part of the lawsuit, but it's not necessarily a person suing a person. It's that third outside big brother
third party.
It's
okay.
That's the third party, and that's where it gets really tricky, because sometimes I would think that the majority of people aren't looking. Now, there are people who are just looking to sue people. There are. But the majority of people, I don't think, are mean-spirited. They're not going to go to the 70-year-old florist and do something so that they can sue her. They're not really looking for that. But I think that, I mean, there are people who are that mean-spirited. But I would say the majority of people are not. But if you're told you've been discriminated against, we need to sue, then you're like, oh, I've been discriminated against. My rights are being
Okay.
taken away, and so that's where it gets tricky. Those third parties.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that, because I read it and I wasn't exactly sure how that works. I feel like, I don't know, like you said, I guess if you were like, oh my gosh, my rights are being discriminated against, like, someone help me. But I feel like if I wasn't gonna sue someone, I'd be like, dude, get out of my business. Like, I've got this, go to help someone else. I don't know. Thank you for clarifying that. That was my question. So
I don't know if I mentioned this on the discussion board, or if it was just on something else that I was writing, or I don't know what. But I was thinking about these third party lawsuits kind of being like the ambulance chasers. Lawyers used to be like have this bad rap for like chasing the ambulance to get to the party so that they could be the first ones to tell them you need to sue this other person. I kind of feel like that's what these third-party litigators are doing. They're like, oh, let's see, what can we find that's going to make a really good lawsuit? And they follow people around and they say, you've been discriminated against. Let's sue them. I mean, that's kind of where that whole third-party thing is going to be like, ambulance chasers, yes.
That makes sense.
Good question. Any other thoughts? If not, then probably Allison.
Okay, I'll take over. So we started off talking about religious liberty and how freedom of religion is not freedom from religion. We should be allowed to act according to our own moral values, and it's important also to know the laws regarding religious freedom so that we know how to defend it. We also need to say something, even if we feel like we're not making any difference. We need to get the information out into the public, get our views out there. Alicia talked a little bit about how we live in a free market and we shouldn't run the risk of losing everything by choosing who we serve. Rachel also talked a little bit about this, about having a sign, and we reserve the right to refuse service. I've seen the no shirt, no shoes, no service. I don't know, maybe those signs are coming down. I haven't really looked at restaurants to see if those signs have come down, but I imagine if you're in a business and you're worried about getting sued, those might come down too. I don't know. We talked a little bit about how it seems like there's a lot of contention, and there's for lack of a better word, immaturity. There's a lot of arguing and not a lot of listening. I think that's we talked about that several times, how it's important to listen to others. Alicia shared a story about reminding us that the world is not all bad, and there are people, colleges who view religious diversity and values just the same as we do. Some of the key points that I wrote down from what we were talking about are that we need to find ways to find the common ground. We need to find out why people feel the way that they feel. Remember that we are more alike than we are different, and that we all care about our families in whatever situation that is, whatever your family is. That's really what our main common ground is, that we all care and want the best for our families. Those were all the notes I took. That was my wrap up. Probably I didn't take as many notes as I should have, because I was really impressed with the dialogue, with what you guys were saying. It's hard to listen and write at the same time. So, was there anything that I missed that you guys can think of?
No, thanks.
I thought you did great.
Yeah. So we don't have a meeting next week. You're welcome.
Good job, Rachel.
Can't take the credit for that. I thought that was so funny.
I'm giving you the credit.
I saw that. I was like, I have to email them, but you beat me to it. So no meeting next week, but the next meeting will be on the 29th. So that still works for everyone. Same time, same place.
And I'm willing to do any of the responsibilities, whatever because I didn't do anything this week. So I can lead the discussion. I can set up the meeting, whatever works best for you guys.
I don't care.
Yeah, I can
I
help
mean,
too.
we'll figure that out next week.
I'll lead the discussion next time.
Do you want me to be the note taker or do you want me to set it up?
I can set it up.
Okay, I'll be the note taker. I think I've only ever done that once, so that'll be great.
Wow, Alicia.
I'll show up.
Woohoo! And I hope everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Yeah, same to you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
I'm looking
Alicia.
forward to that. All of my babies are going to be home. I'm so excited. Yay!
Hey,
That's
Alicia.
awesome.
Can I talk to you for a couple minutes about that book? Am I
Oh,
done?
yeah.
Yeah, here, I'll stop our broadcast.